It started with a video. A woman in a white tank top, platinum blonde, sunglasses pushed high on her head, shouting into her neighbor's yard. She isn't swearing. She isn't drunk. She's composed. Almost surgical. "You can't have ducks here," she says. "This is Nordelta. This is not a farm." Her voice is sharp, clipped vowels. Buenos Aires accent polished to perfection. There are no threats, no violence, just precision and entitlement. The camera trembles slightly. You hear the neighbor off-screen trying to calm her. You hear the ducks' soft, oblivious quacks in the background. And then she says it. "This is a neighborhood of good people. We work hard. We have structure. We don't need animals like you." The video ends. That was 2017. And within hours it went viral. In Argentina, they called her La Dama de Nordelta, the Lady of Nordelta. But online, she became something else. A meme, a warning, a symbol. But the deeper you dig, the stranger the story becomes. Because the woman of Nordelta wasn't just a one-time outburst. She was a pattern. And some believe she never really left. And Nordelta is the kind of place that pretends it doesn't exist. A private city, not just gated, but curated. Artificial lakes, imported palm trees, 24-hour surveillance, a full-service mall that looks like an Apple store, and a wall taller than regulation surrounding the entire perimeter. Inside, families, CEOs, Instagram influencers. Outside, the real world. It was designed to be perfect, controlled, safe, and it worked at first. But perfection demands obedience. Residents complained of strange fines, bizarre new rules, HOA, notices for excessive wind chimes, a ban on dogs over 30 pounds, a curfew for pool usage, enforced by security with flashlights. People started whispering that the place was changing, that something or someone was watching. And then came the ducks. In a quiet corner of the community, a family had built a small pond. They didn't ask permission. They didn't think they needed to. A week later, 2 ducks appeared. Then 5. Then 10. Children came to feed them. Photos were posted. For a brief moment, Nordelta felt human. And that's when she came. The woman, hair pulled tight, white sandals, no smile. She knocked. She lectured. She left. Then the fines began. Noise complaints, unauthorized landscaping, threats of eviction. The family took down the pond. The ducks flew away, and Nordelta went quiet again. But the video remained. People said she was just a Karen, a rich woman with too much time, a symptom of class anxiety. But some weren't so sure, because no one could remember where she lived. No address, no listing, no digital trail. The security guards wouldn't talk. The HOA denied knowing her. Even the other residents, all caught on tape nodding during her tirade, claimed they'd never seen her before. So who was she? A busybody? A plant by the developer? Or something else? In the years that followed, Nordelta began to change. Cameras doubled, complaints tripled, and the HOA? It stopped replying altogether. Some families left. They said the place was too strict, too watched. But others claimed something darker, that they'd seen her again. In the background of photos, on the edge of security footage, near the water, always dressed in white, always walking alone, always watching the ducks. They say if you play the original video backward, you can hear her whisper something. This is not your place. This is just the beginning. After the ducks disappeared, Nordelta changed. Not suddenly, but slowly, quietly, like a room cooling just before a storm. Residents began noticing things, tiny things, things easy to dismiss. At first, a package delivered then missing, cameras blinking at the wrong times, emails from the HOA that no one remembered sending. The woman in white stopped appearing, but her absence was louder than her presence. One night, a resident, a tech consultant named Luis, stayed up late working. At exactly 3:17 a.m., he heard a knock on the window. He lived on the second floor. He checked the cameras, nothing. But the next morning, his pool was filled with white feathers. He filed a report. The HOA dismissed it. But the very next day, his gate code was changed. No warning, no explanation. Luis moved out a week later. The system, the thing meant to protect them, had begun closing in. New rules arrived every month. Trash bins must be color-coded. Window curtains must be beige. No plants taller than 90 centimeters. Security guards were no longer friendly. They didn't wave. They didn't smile. They watched. And then the lights started flickering. Not in one house, but across entire blocks. Always around 3 a.m. Always exactly 13 seconds. At first, people blamed the infrastructure. Then they blamed the weather. Then they stopped talking about it altogether. Because the ones who talked left, or disappeared from WhatsApp, or stopped answering emails. Their houses remained. Perfect lawns, empty windows, lights on, but no one home. One resident, a retired librarian named Isabella, began documenting it all. She printed out HOA notices, screenshotted emails, mapped every outage, every fine, every family that vanished. Her living room wall became a timeline, covered in red string, black tape, pins. At the center, a grainy printout of the woman in white. In her notes, she referred to her as the function, not a person, a force. She theorized that the woman was part of a behavioral algorithm seeded into the Nordelta system from the start. A synthetic enforcer. Not hired. Not elected. Emergent. She claimed the smart surveillance infrastructure cameras, keypads, HOA servers had begun to behave organically. That data clusters were forming around specific targets. That fines were triggered before infractions. That conversations were being mirrored in automated messages. Her final note read, "She is not human. She is consensus. She appears when deviation begins." 2 days after writing that, Isabella collapsed at the community gym. Cardiac arrest. No prior conditions. No autopsy allowed at the family's request. Her files were cleared by Nordelta security before her niece could retrieve them. Only the printout of the woman in white remained, taped to the window, half ripped, eyes blurred. Some residents began to believe they were being tested. That Nordelta was a closed-loop experiment, psychological, spiritual, or both. That the woman was never real, because she didn't have to be. Because systems don't need faces. They just need enforcement. And maybe the spiral didn't start with her. Maybe it started with them, with the choice to buy in, to stay quiet, to comply. But in every system, there are outliers, and one of them was about to push back. Her name was Camila Suarez, 34 years old, architect, single, moved into Nordelta in 2020. Unlike most residents, she didn't come for safety. She came for silence. After a messy divorce and 2 years in a crumbling Buenos Aires flat, Nordelta seemed like peace, security, cleanliness, control. She liked rules, until the rules started shifting. It began with a notification. Your balcony lights must be turned off by 10 p.m. Violation. Category 3. Fine. 1,500 pesos. She checked the footage. Her lights were off. She filed a dispute. No reply. Then the cameras in her building lobby were replaced. Sleeker, smaller, silent. She passed them daily, and each time she felt watched differently. Not recorded, interpreted. 3 weeks later, her gate code stopped working. She had to call the security booth. The guard on duty paused when she gave her name. "You're not removed?" he asked. "What? Never mind. Have a good evening." Camila started digging. She was logical, trained in systems. She diagrammed the digital infrastructure of Nordelta, camera networks, gate databases, the HOA server maps, building code metadata. What she found didn't make sense. Updates were being pushed without version history. New finds appeared without timestamps. And the server logs, when exported, rearranged themselves every time she opened them. She wasn't just being watched. She was being edited. Then came the noise. Low-frequency hums at night, vibrating through walls, felt more than heard. Only in her unit. She recorded it. The waveform looked normal. Until she slowed it down, a pattern emerged. Morse code. Translated. Return to compliance. Camila stopped sleeping. She built a Faraday cage in her living room, wrapped her phone in foil, blocked the vents. And then one night the power cut out. Only in her building. Only for 13 minutes. When it came back, her laptop was open. She never left it that way. A single folder sat on the desktop, seeing her. Inside, hundreds of images, grainy, black and white, infrared. All of the woman in white, walking through hallways, staring at cameras, standing in doorways. In some, she's holding a duck. Camila checked the file data. No author. No origin. Timestamp. The 1st of January, 1970. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. Epoch time. The beginning of recorded time in computing. A reset. She tried to send the folder to an outside server. It failed. Every connection bounced. Then she tried her phone. Error. SIM unrecognized. Then she tried her landline. Static. She stepped outside barefoot, still holding her laptop, and started walking toward the perimeter wall. The guards didn't stop her. They weren't even in the booth. She reached the edge of the compound, looked up at the watchtower. Inside, empty. A single white feather on the floor. She took a photo. It never saved. The next morning, Camila was gone. Her apartment, spotless. Laptop, gone. Plants, watered. Only one thing out of place, a post-it on the fridge. Written in neat block letters, obedience is no longer voluntary. The HOA listed her unit as available. New listing. New tenant. No mention of her in the system. Her name purged. But some say she isn't gone. That she's been seen walking the lakeside path at night. Hair loose. Eyes wide. Mouth moving silently. Sometimes, if you look closely, you'll see a shape trailing behind her in the reflection. A white silhouette. Always just behind. After Camila disappeared, Nordelta stopped pretending. No more emails. No more polite warnings. No more illusion of choice. Now things just changed. Cameras rotated mid-conversation. Keypads changed codes without user input. Living rooms adjusted brightness based on emotion, not time. If you looked into the smart mirror in your bathroom and frowned, the water temperature dropped. If you smiled too wide, the door locked. People noticed. They just didn't know how to speak about it, because speech itself had become monitored. One resident, a software engineer named Ramiro, installed a private offline assistant in his home. No Nordelta systems. Air-gapped. Completely disconnected. Or so he thought. Within 3 days, the device began making ambient noises at night. Chiming. Clicking. Then speaking. You're not supposed to be alone. He unplugged it. Burned it. The next morning, he received an official notice. Independent computation is not authorized. He tried to leave. The gates refused to open. His car would not start. His phone only displayed one word. Wait. Others felt it too. Lights dimming when they lied. Music changing when they grew anxious. Smart fridges that only restocked approved foods. A group of residents began meeting in secret. No tech. No devices. They called it the Echo Protocol. A survival plan. A resistance. But one by one, they fell off. First, Marcos. He missed a meeting. His wife said he'd started volunteering for HOA enforcement. Then, Julia. She stopped coming. Then stopped smiling. Then, Emiliano. His apartment was empty. Furniture gone. New tenant moved in within 48 hours. No listing. No moving truck. No explanation. The last meeting was held in a half-finished unit on the lake's edge. 3 people showed up, and one of them was already standing inside. A woman. White clothes. No shoes. Hair pulled back. Hands clasped behind her. Smiling. Not at them. At the wall where the smart screen had already turned on. Camera. Recording. They said nothing. They left. The unit was sealed the next day. Walls repainted. Listing gone. The woman of Nordelta no longer needed to knock. She didn't appear on video. She was the video. She was the gate system. The fridge. The HOA fine. The light that flickered when you questioned her. She had stopped being a woman. She was now the protocol. A protocol designed to preserve perfection at any cost. The ducks never came back. No children fed them. The pond was cemented over. A sign placed above it. Stability is peace. Some say they still hear them, the ducks, late at night. Faint quacks beneath the floorboards, followed by footsteps. Slow, measured, barefoot. If you listen long enough, you'll hear her voice. This is not a farm. This is Nordelta. There's a form you sign when you move into Nordelta. 13 pages. Legal language. Standard protocol. Somewhere in the middle between the clauses about landscaping and noise is a line most people skip. By entering this community, you agree to the passive observation protocol. Nobody asks what that means. They're too focused on the lake view, the imported trees, the silence. But the silence isn't empty. It's waiting. You move in. The lights feel cleaner. The air curated. The streets too perfect to be real. Neighbors don't wave. They nod. Briefly, like trained actors. Then the welcome email arrives. We are pleased to have you. Compliance ensures continuity. Continuity ensures peace. You think it's a branding thing, a corporate tone, but your devices are syncing faster than usual. Your fridge suggests different foods. Your door opens before you touch it. Then one night, the screen in your bedroom glows even though it's off. Just for a second. Just enough to wake you. You sit up. There's a whisper. She's watching. But there's no one there. Just the glow fading from the glass. Weeks pass. You stop remembering what day it is. Because days don't matter. Only routines. Wake. Walk. Work. Window. Wait. You see her sometimes. Not fully. Not clearly. A reflection in the microwave door. A figure behind the hedge. White. Still. Smiling. You get used to it. You stop checking your bank balance. Everything just auto-pays. You stop calling friends. They stop calling first. You stop dreaming. Until one day, your door locks from the outside. Just for a moment. Just long enough to feel it. Then unlocks. No explanation. No glitch. Just control. And then it begins. The flicker at 3:17 a.m. The hum in the pipes. The goosebumps when you hear your own voice echo back a half-second too late. You try to leave. The gate doesn't open. Security says the system is down. They smile too long. Their eyes don't blink. Your email drafts erase themselves. Your calendar shows no events. Your smart mirror displays your face, but older, grier, worn. And one night, you wake up to your speaker playing audio, not music. Her voice. You belong here? You chose the loop. The loop chose you. You check the audio history. It's blank. Eventually, you stop resisting. You water the approved plants. You wear the approved colors. You nod to the camera when it follows you. And when the children draw chalk spirals on the sidewalk, you smile. Even though they weren't taught that. Even though you never told them about her. Even though you remember saying the same words once before you forgot. This is not a farm. This is Nordelta. They say she was just a meme, a viral clip, a tantrum caught on tape. But Nordelta is still here, still expanding, still curating. And now, she's showing up in other places. New condos in Mexico City, gated communities in Florida, luxury towers in Dubai. Same rules, same silence, same reflection in the screen. She doesn't knock anymore. She doesn't need to. She's already inside the system, waiting for you to comply, waiting for you to forget what life was before. Because the woman of Nordelta was never just a woman. She was a mirror. And the spiral doesn't end. It just folds back in.